By the way, I like all your analogies about leaving the iron on and the smoke detector batteries and things. I'm thinking you could build a whole story around that. You could write a book. It'd be like the 1 Minute Manager, but more domesticated.
No, I think you're right. I have to consider that.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello, my name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter. And today Jo is interviewing Naketa Thigpen of ThigPro Balance. Jo was introduced to Naketa through Dawn of Lidwell Writing Services. Does our brilliant show notes for us, and Jo has since been a guest on Naketa's podcast, which purely coincidentally is likely to be published on the same day as this one. Naketa Thigpen, regarded as the #1 balance and relationship advisor in the world, is the president and CEO of ThigPro Balance and Relationship Management Institute, a global personal development company headquartered in Philadelphia, PA. From main stage keynotes through intense virtual cohorts and live micro-retreats, Naketa and her team set out every day to inspire, equip, and empower the willing, ambitious women, and a few brave men, who are ready to move beyond simply surviving the burnout of work and life and energy-zapping relationships into a space where you thrive in life, love, and business. At ThigPro, they call this space of renewed possibilities of what life looks like with balance, your joy. As the host of her weekly podcast, Balance Boldly, and her new internet show airing in the fall 2018, Kitchen Conversations, #Unfiltered, Naketa's on a mission campaigning to help women and a few brave men enjoy their life and work. Naketa's philosophy is give yourself permission to pause, invest in a little self-behaviour as you steady yourself for the greater, deeper work awaiting you on the next level of your success. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Naketa Thigpen of ThigPro Balance and Relationship Management Institute. So hi Naketa, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Jo. I'm excited to be here.
I keep saying I must push this whole international podcast thing because you're again over the pond, aren't you? It's your morning to my afternoon, isn't it?
It is. I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, inside the United States, and it is definitely a bright, sunny morning over here.
Lovely, lovely. So tell us more about who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
Sure. So I am a CEO. I'm completely unapologetic in all of my ways. Part of the way that I stand on the earth and stand in my power is I also have a podcast just like you. It's called Balance Boldly, where I'm always focused on helping ambitious women who are kind of stuck in survival mode, just dealing with combating burnout in their work and their life, but they're not thriving. They're not thriving in love, in their life, or in their businesses if they have them. And part of why we started ThigPro Balance and Relationship Management Institute, my company with a super long name, was to help, was to help those women and a few brave men who are absolutely willing to break free from the expectations that are binding them and kind of keeping them stuck in that suffocation space. We just want people to embrace their truth and create boundaries around everything that they need so that they can create joy in their life. So the background of that is I'm a licensed clinical social worker for 20 plus years as a professional. I came from a space of trauma, sexual relationship therapy, human behavior, and all that good stuff. And what I realized is as awesome as it was to kind of be the midwife for people in that very intimate space, kind of one-on-one or, one to a family, helping them through, there were so many other elements that as a clinician, I wasn't quote unquote licensed to do, within the guise of the hospitals that I worked at. So I had to break free from my own bind. So I'm literally teaching people to do what I did. You don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur to do that, but literally walking in your truth and embracing the destiny that you have. So that's kind of where we are.
And tell us a bit more about how you do that. So what sort of activities you create and deliver within the organization?
Yeah, so we have micro retreats. For me, a micro retreat is anything less than 8 hours. So I try to give you an experience of a retreat in somewhere between 3 and 8 hours, where there's a lot of connection with the other people that are there, like actual intimate connections where you're building closeness. It's not the superficial networking of like, hey, throw me a business card, tell me what you do so I'll forget about it tomorrow. We promise to follow up and we never do. Like we wanted to create a space where Exactly. We wanted to create a space where people feel safe. So I have these permission to pause micro retreats that again extend from somewhere between 3 and 8 hours. We're trying to create some of the overnight extensions of that, where I can really walk people through our proprietary process. It's called the Joy Map Method. And we've been doing it for almost 7 years under the guise of the business. I just kind of had different names for it. I know, Joe, like I do, you kind of change names with what you think is sexy at the time. Permission to release your success and break barrier boot camp, just all these different names. But we settled on the simplicity of it, right? And I'm helping people create their balance and create their joy. So that's what the MAP method is. And often we'll offer that opportunity in an intensive that might be virtual, because like you, a lot of our clients are from all over the globe and they can't necessarily come to Philadelphia for a 12-week program per se. So we have these intensives and accelerators where we do that with them. And if they can be in person in Philly, New York, or Atlanta, or somewhere that's quote unquote local for us that we can get to, we have this retreat experience for them to walk through that process.
And where do you work generally yourself? So what sort of environment are you in on a daily basis?
Oh, I have what people would call a laptop lifestyle. I think that's the phrase that these young folk are still using. I'm over 40 now, so I'm trying to keep up. So I'm anywhere that myself and my laptop and my smartphone can be. So I have a home office inside my little apartment in Philly, but I travel a good bit. So sometimes I'm at a local coffee shop in Midtown Manhattan, New York. Sometimes I have to be in San Francisco, California. It really just depends on where I'm at, where the clients are calling me. And often I kind of lead from a space of keynoting and being a featured speaker. So when I'm a speaker at, say, a women's conference in, I don't know, Delaware, that's traditionally where I get to spray seeds of my message, spray seeds of why it's important to balance your life and your love and your business. And when I do that, even though it might be in front of companies that are there, like people who are representing companies, those individual women typically come in and say either we need something like this at our company, and hopefully they're an influencer or decision maker that can, help advocate for that process to happen in there, or they're just looking for their own help because they feel like they're suffocating where they are as well. So that's typically how I show up in the world.
Yes, yeah. So you talked a bit already about why you do what you do. How do you prioritize that with your life as well? So it sounds like you travel quite a bit. How do you sort of integrate that together or balance it? I don't know what terminology you'd use. Your work side and your personal side.
Yeah, for me, it truly is work-life balance. It's one of the messages that I'm kind of branded by. I'm like the balance queen on the East Coast. And I believe that honestly, your balance is just your truth over your boundaries. I created a truth of wanting to give hope and healing to other brilliant women, unapologetically, unabashedly. That's what I define myself as. I'm a brilliant woman who's also ambitious, who was really unbalanced, right? Like I was kind of I was a little bit of a hot mess. I was a brilliant hot mess, but I was a little bit of a hot mess. And my truth was I wanted to help other people break free from that same thing and know that you could kind of have everything you want, just not at the same time. And you often have to redefine what it is that you really want. So for me, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I said, oh, I really don't want to have to travel because my husband doesn't like to travel. And I was kind of stuck in that, we've been dating since we were 17. We've been married for over 20 years. So I was definitely like, oh, if my husband can't go, then I'll have to do everything local. But my truth was I really wanted to travel, right? But I was telling people, I was like, oh, I just want to kind of focus on the business and keep it here. Like I was playing small, for lack of a better. And that was out of balance for me. So on paper, my life might have looked structured and organized and my calendar might have looked clean, but I was bound, by trying to live to an expectation that, first of all, honestly, Joe, he never even asked me to limit myself, but I just kind of thought as a good wife, you shouldn't be traveling, all over the world and leaving your family at home. And the reality is he wanted the break from me. Okay. I'm a little special. So he's like, please go and grow and make that money and come back and let me miss you, So once I kind of figured out my own truth around even something as small as just my schedule, which was obviously tied to the thrivability of my business and what I'm destined to do and all that I want to, then I could really figure out, well, how do I want to do it? Knowing that I have 2 kids. Now, as of right now, for the last 4 months, I'm also a grandmom. So, I know, right? That's like a whole different world that I'm super, super learning and, each taking baby steps, pun intended, with that. But when we started our business, it was 7 years ago. My youngest is now 17. So we're talking, she was 10 years old and I was dealing with a preteen. I was dealing with a teen. And here I am trying to figure out how to manage a schedule and clients and the expectations of them calling you at 6 o'clock in the morning with pseudo crisis that weren't really crisis. You know what I mean? Like, just all of that. Meanwhile, trying to carpool the kids to school, just kind of, taking on all of those. And what I decided to do was to get real and honest about myself. I could absolutely make this business amazing working 120 hours a week, replacing the 120 hours I did as a clinician who had 2 and 3 jobs, who was trying to make, a certain lifestyle savings for our family, alongside my husband. Or I could say, you know what, that's not how I want to do it. So I put some very strict time frames around myself on Mondays and Fridays, with the exception of those irreplaceable opportunities that I've been waiting for. If Good Day America calls me and says, Naketa, we need you here Friday morning. Well, you know what? It's on my list of, savings that I want to perform on. So I'm going to, make an exception. It's not the rule, but it'll definitely be an exception. And I will be there in New York at 5 a.m. or whatever time. But if someone says, oh, I just want to have coffee with you, and I could have been looking forward to having coffee. So, I'm trying to put a little bit of a parallel, but the coffee meeting can be held on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday, which are my networking days. It doesn't have to be put on the Friday that I specifically set aside for. That's when I do my podcast interviews. That's when I have what I call my lab day, when I'm working on the business and not in the business. So those days are very protected because the truth of what I want is to have a balanced schedule that I can enjoy. And I can decide if I'm going to cop a squat in my little, loft style apartment and kick my feet up and write on the couch or the kitchen table or at the desk, right? Versus feeling, strapped to a specific space and place that I have to be in to do something like, oh, I have 16 hours. I have to get all this stuff done. I just didn't want that for my business. And I did it, Joe. Like I did that the first few years because I didn't know. I wasn't trained. I didn't have a coach or an advisor. I was just trying to keep up with the keep ups. You know what I mean? Like I was just kind of all over trying to hit the numbers, to justify the fact that I had left my career and, right. And to help pay the bills. So once I kind of broke free from that, I was like, all right, Mondays and Fridays are your creative lab days that you can flow into your creative space in whichever way makes sense. Obviously, I, do interviews on Fridays. I have certain things. I have very few exceptions to the rule. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have office hours. So unless you are a private VIP client, which I only take a couple of those a year just because of my own bandwidth, my own personal bandwidth, because I give so much to my private clients, is I know that I kind of top out at about 7 people. So I limit it to 3 to 5. Like I don't actually allow the top out point because I don't want to max out of my personal energy and then start to regret the people that you've been wanting to work with. Because I'm like, oh man, another phone call. Like, no, I want to be excited that Lisa's calling or Tina's calling. Like, I want to look forward to it. So I take 3 to 5 private clients a year. Now they might get me at 5:30 a.m. because they're VIPs, right? Like they have access to me at a very different point, within reason. Like I have sessions as early as 5:30 a.m., but not at 5 a.m. Like I have some barriers and boundaries around that too. I'm a morning person. I'm not an evening person. So there's very few exceptions to evening events that I attend, as well as evening appointments that I'll take. It's very few exceptions. Which is kind of how answer your question, is kind of how I balance it a little bit. Is my family has access to my schedule, so they can see how crazy my day is. Or, you know what, Mom, I see that you're open from 12 to 2. Can we do lunch today? Whatever it is. And we just kind of work with it.
Yeah. So you sound quite structured with that now. How does that play into making sure you get done what you need to get done? How do you manage your to-do list, your tasks?
Yeah, so I used to do, and I kind of still do it, so I don't want to be a liar. I used to be really strict about the Eisenhower matrix. So I know you're familiar with it, but for any listener who isn't, it's kind of a 4-square grid. You move from having a box of like writing down your quick wins, what can you get done as fast as possible that will give you the highest turnover, whether it's not necessarily money, but that will give you the quickest win and your momentum and your time. So I still go by that, because momentum honestly helps you speed down that hill a little bit faster to take on those bigger, maybe arduous tasks that you aren't looking forward to, like fixing your website when your web guy isn't available, whatever. So I will do the smaller, quicker win. And I start my mornings with that, truly. I don't really focus on as much, like I'm not rigid about the matrix in terms of the delegate and delete part of it. I do use that system, but what I did is I kind of adapted it, and I created just a one sheet that I had that I keep in a binder. And I just look at it. Sometimes I write all over it in no particular order, but I put on the left side of the column for Monday through Friday, because I do try not to work, more than a few hours on the weekend, just because of the family and other obligations. Sometimes that's not a possibility. That's just what it is. But I try not to make that the rule either. So Monday through Friday, I have on the left side of the paper, what is critical? Critical is the house is going to burn down if you don't get this done. That's one, maybe 2 things in that day that is absolutely critical for the business, or for my life. So it's critical for me to get my mammogram, right? Like, you don't put that off. You get that done. You're over 40 now. Get it together. Or whatever else might be critical in your, the life side of your day, where the house is going to literally catch on fire in your mind if you don't get it done. And I do limit that to 1 or 2 things. On the right side of that paper, I have the urgent towards the top right, and then I have important towards the bottom right. The urgent things for me, they're really part of that, for the Eisenhower matrix, that kind of major project side. That's, you're familiar with it, but on the grid, that's the things that's like leaving your iron on when you're not home. It's not smart to leave your iron on. But assuming that you didn't leave it face down on fabric, you can send somebody to your house to go turn that off, right? Like, so that might be something that I have to delegate over a little bit and say, hey, to my virtual assistant, I need you to go check the so-and-so, because I think that that's something that might, cause a little bit of a ripple. So like, let's get to it. It's definitely something we want to get to this week, but it doesn't necessarily have to be done today. And it definitely doesn't have to be done by me necessarily. But the important stuff, those are the things like putting the batteries in your smoke detector. That's the stuff that prevents the fire from ever becoming urgent or critical in the first place. And those are things that I definitely want to try to, finish up at some point. Most likely I'm delegating all the important stuff. I'm handling personally the critical, and I'm getting support with the urgent. And that's where team comes in, just having a small team. Like, our team isn't big. Our company is not, 100,000 people. We have myself, my husband, who is a shareholder and partner, who was actually fired by me a couple of years ago from I was like, listen, let's save our marriage. Like, you're fired. You're still, owner. You're still shareholder. Obviously you have a stake in the company. He wants us to succeed. But I could tell from his energy, he's great, by the way. He's fantastic at what he does. But I could tell the energy wasn't behind him with doing it. And it was also limiting his opportunity to go and grow and do what he was destined for, which wasn't necessarily to work in the same room with his wife all day. So he still steps in, Joe. Like, he just recreated some updated business cards for us. If I have a proposal that's due, say a company is like, oh, we want the Joy Map method here, but we want to, customize it and tweak it. Well, we try to make those proposals very custom and add, design and logo and stuff. I can't do that stuff. So instead of trying to farm it out and outsource it and have to wait a week or pay a bunch of expedited fees, he'll just jump on it and bang it out in a few hours. Just because he loves me. He's not being paid for it. He just loves me. So that's why he does it. Yeah. And, I have a virtual assistant who has an agency, so she can, delegate stuff within her team if it's transcribing or whatever, a podcast manager, and, the awesome Dawn Lidwell from Lidwell Writing.
That's right.
She handles all of our show notes for our podcast. So that's literally our team, with the exception of some other, outsourced projects here and there.
Yes. Yeah. So what about sort of tools and apps for you personally getting stuff done? By the way, I like all your analogies about leaving the iron on and the smoke detector batteries and things. I'm thinking you could build a whole story around that. You could write a book. It'd be like the 1 Minute Manager, but more domesticated.
No, I think you're right. I have to consider that. You can tell what I do in my home life, right? I would say for my personal apps, which is a great question because, in these days you have like a ton. If I was strapped on an island and needed, just 3 or 4 tools that I had to run the business from and I couldn't use anything else, I would definitely say my Acuity calendar, which is it's kind of like the Calendly or the Book.me, but it's called Acuity. Yeah. I need my calendar system, man. It saves us from the back and forth emails of what time works for you. It really truly helps, especially with segmenting the type of appointment, which I know you appreciate too. So my calendar is definitely one. Dropbox is my number 2 for sure, because that's the cloud file cabinet, for
enable all that traveling.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and you can pull it up from your mobile and just sync it. Like, I really enjoy that. I would say ifttt.com. If this, then that. Have you ever used that, Joe?
Yeah, I do use it for a couple of things. I tend to use Zapier for a lot of my automation, but ifttt does a few things that Zapier doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I'm kind of reverse. So I use Zapier for just a couple of things, but I use ifttt for so much more.
And it's free, isn't it?
And yeah, exactly. And it's free. And that honestly was something I outsourced. I had someone put, I was like, I need to be able to do ABC, XYZ. And they gave me way more than I wanted. I went on Fiverr.com and I think it was like $15 and they created like 75 links or zaps, whatever you want to call it, that they set up for me, which was great. And so it helps with everything from my morning Monday question that I post on LinkedIn every Monday that we get nice engagement with. And I set that up 3 years ago. I'm like, I don't even remember that question, but I set it up on ifttt 3 years ago and people are still responding to us, which is awesome.
Wow.
And I would say maybe my 4th one is probably Freed Camp, which is our project manager system, similar to an Asana or a Basecamp. It's just a lot more end user friendly. And I really, really enjoy the company. The owners are pretty awesome guys.
That's a good one. I've did a lot of looking around. I use Asana, but it doesn't entirely work as I like. And I looked at a load of others. I think I did look at Freed Camp, but I came back to Asana because I couldn't really find anything that I preferred. But maybe I need to look again.
It's one of those things that I think for project management systems, sometimes the moving is just annoying because you don't have to move all your stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
it's kind of like having that closet system in your house that is a little chaotic to someone else, but for you, you know where everything is. So why change it? So if it's working for you, keep it.
I love that you've come up with another house analogy.
I know, I sound like Beaver the Cleaver's wife or something. Like, I don't know. It's quite hilarious. Considering, I will be honest, Joe, and say my husband is way more domestic than I am. He's like, he does all the washing and the steaming, and he's so much better at cleaning than I am. He taught me how to cook when I was 19. Like, he's so much better at this stuff than I am. But I think he's kind
You're
of
aspiring, obviously, with all these.
I am. I'm aspiring. I agree.
Oh, excellent. So let's talk a bit about self-care. It sounds like you have quite a hectic life, but then you've also crafted it in recent years. But obviously now, as you say, you've got a little grandchild into the mix as well now. And you do the traveling and everything else. So how do you make sure that you're healthy and well enough to do what you need to do?
Yeah, I mean, my routine is a little bit more arduous than probably most people. So I have a rare autoimmune disease that should have left me in a lot worse position than it has. I got diagnosed in 2014 after years of, the doctors saying, it's anxiety. You're just a woman of childbearing years. Let's put you on some stress management, medications and for depression and, all this kind of crap that had nothing to do with what was going on with my body.
Pesky autoimmune, eh? They never diagnose them right away, do they, if ever?
They don't, and especially with women, because they immediately put you in the box and say that, you're a woman with ambition. You're just anxious or stressed. Like, let's give you some antidepressants, which now, mind you, as a clinician, I appreciate an antidepressant. Like, I'm not mad at that at all, but it's definitely, don't throw darts in the dark is always, my philosophy with things, especially when so many things have side effects that you won't know. Is it the side effect or a new symptom that's showing up from whatever it is that's actually going on with you? So I'm a natural trained homeopath. I was raised sort of natural as well, but they weren't like, my grandmother wasn't necessarily a guru with essential oils and that kind of thing. But when this illness kind of took over and no one could tell me what was going on, and then when I got diagnosed, I was relieved, but very disheartened when they were putting me on 10, 12 medications a day in my 30s. Like, are you kidding me right now? That's not sexy. And selfishly, I enjoy being sexy. And taking all that medication every day just wasn't in alignment with that. So I started treating myself about 9 months in after the steroids and all that kind of good stuff. So part of my routine today is reflective of what I need to do to stay healthy. So I'm really, really rigid with food because I have a lot of intolerances and a lot of allergies that cause extra inflammation in my body, which kind of starts the snowstorm of, everything just kind of going out of whack and can basically put me in the hospital because of a flare and all that. So I eat extremely clean. Like, I'm not just gluten-free. Someone asked me, was I vegetarian or vegan? I was like, well, I'm like a meat-eating vegan who's gluten-free, who still can't eat everything that they eat. Like that, like, so I was like, there's no label for me yet. I don't have preservatives. I don't have artificial color. I don't have artificial flavor. I don't take corn, canola oil. I mean, there's just so many things that for my personal body, I've learned it just isn't healthy for me. So my self-care involves me paying attention to my body. My fit tonic is nature. I love to be in nature. Now, sometimes because of Philadelphia weather, I can't necessarily go for a 30 or 45-minute walk, brisk walk into the city. I used to be a runner, so I'm always like aspiring to get back there, but my knees and my back haven't caught up to my aspirations. So
Fine.
Right. They're not quite there. I'm working on it though, Joe. I'm working on it. It's just not quite there yet. So if I can't get outside, I have a little rebounder. It's probably the size of, a small settee couch. Like, it's really small that I can just jump on for 15 or 20 minutes and just kind of sweat and work it out. And I open up my windows. I have a big, beautiful tree outside, so I can almost fake myself into thinking that I'm outside if the weather's horrible and I can't be. So exercise is really important for me. I would love to say that I do rigorous CrossFit and HIIT and all kinds of things, and I don't. I used to.
We might believe it.
Right, I know, right? Like, and I don't. Like, I used to be like super advocate about sweat till you sparkle, like, do it. And I do believe that you should if you can. I just learned that I started to have injuries and other things that would limit me and make me feel defeated after. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to, pull it back to Pilates and yoga and some things that maybe aren't necessarily involving plyometrics where I'm jumping up and down and falling hard on my knees. It's just, it doesn't work for me at this hour of my life. I'm still very hopeful, but in this hour. So, having fitness, eating clean, hydrating, obviously. And I would honestly say a big thing for me are the little tiny rituals that I created. Like I start every morning, no matter what, including this morning when it's 90 some degrees, with a hot cup of peppermint tea. Like it's my thing, and it kicks off my mental reminder to drink today. Because with part of my autoimmune is I don't have an appetite and I don't get thirsty. Like I have to remind myself. Like by the time I realize I'm thirsty, if I haven't been giving myself cues or reminders, I'm like, 2 seconds from needing an IV in my arm because I'm not naturally thirsty.
Right.
So like just kicking off that, okay, Naketa, a sip of lemon water, 4 or 6 ounces of lemon water in the morning as soon as I rise. But that's not a good trigger for me because that's kind of, habitual to me. It's like brushing your teeth. So I needed something a little more. And I was like, you know what? I love tea. I'm really a black tea girl, but I don't want to kick off, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning with caffeine that early. So I just started implementing peppermint tea or rooibos. Is my alternate if I'm out of peppermint tea, because my daughter's kind of picked up on it too. So sometimes she surprises me and drinks all the tea before I can finish it. So I just kind of kick it off like that. And I take a lot of naps. I'm a big napper. 20, 30 minutes, not anything egregious, but I believe in listening to my body. So when I can, if I'm in a safe space, like not in the airport, not on a train, I'm very careful where I take a nap. But I believe in just shutting off everything, setting a quick alarm and, so I can wake up and get back into the rhythm and take a 30-minute nap and get some sleep. Like sleep is so important for me. Like I can't stress it enough. It's just so important.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. You sound really busy, hectic, but clearly you're building in opportunities to relax. So the sleeping and some of that, the rituals. Is there anything else that you do specifically to ensure that happens?
Yeah, I mean, and part of why I'm so quote unquote busy and productive in my day is because my life matches my clients, right? Like they're all brilliant, unbalanced, ambitious women, and I'm no different. I've just learned to build a toolkit of balanced tools that I apply, figure out what works. The thing that worked on Tuesday might not work on Friday, right? Like, just being able to flex it and customize it to myself. And I give myself anywhere from 2 to 90 minutes of permission to pause a day. And that sometimes, honestly, Joe, it's just 2 minutes. I might only have 2 minutes to just breathe in deep and enjoy, all the blessings that I have, to be completely grateful for everything, to praise God for what I have, including just the fact that I have cognition of mind. Because there was a time where neurologically, because of my autoimmune, I couldn't even remember how to say my name. So I know what it feels like to lose and have your body betray you. And sometimes my 2 minutes is just, thank you, God, that I am aware of this moment. Thank you for the mobility of my limbs. Thank you for no back pain this morning. Okay. Just thank you for that. And it might be 2 minutes of that and then off to the races. Sometimes I get 90 minutes in where I can put my feet up. I can cuddle with my husband for 20 minutes and, get on his nerve while he's trying to watch his boxing match or something. Asking him questions he would rather me not ask because I don't really care and he knows it, but I'm just like doing it to get under his skin. And I love to read. So whether I prefer a paper book, but if I'm traveling or something and I just couldn't pack all that, I'll open up the audio book or throw on a Kindle and do something. But just, literally always learning and having that time to be connected. Like connection is really important. Honestly, just starting with me, like let me connect to me first, and then I kind of extend out from there.
Yeah. So tell us more about the reading and the improving yourself. Do you read fiction, non-fiction? How does the balance work?
No, I'm a nonfiction girl all day long. And I will say that most of the books that I've read have been self improvement, personal transformation, self help, kind of relationship stuff, because I'm naturally just attracted to that, always learning, always trying to find new tools and resources for myself, as well as, the people that I work with. But I just started, and this is like 2018, just got into autobiographies. And of course, I read a lot of business books too, which is kind of just natural par for the course. But I just started autobiographies, and I have a new love. Like, I'm really enjoying this other level. And I have to say, Gabrielle Union's "We Need More Wine" is like phenomenal. Like, every woman in the world needs to read that book. It's amazing.
Lovely, excellent. Well, that's on the list now. So, any others?
Yeah, I mean, that was an autobiography one, and it's sexy and it's soulful, it's honest and it's raw, so it's awesome. My favorite book to recommend to everyone, and I send it as part of the welcome pack for all new clients, is Gay Hendricks' The Big Leap. I don't think it's ever been a more simple book written. I think it's super simplistic. You don't have to, pull out a thesaurus to look up the words. Like, you could just read it, but it's very connected to you understanding your worth and tapping into your zone of genius. Like, it's a phenomenal book that's not necessarily trying to tell you what your purpose is, but help you understand that it's already inside, and you just have to be willing to kind of leap into yourself to, discover what's already been there. So yeah. I highly recommend that book.
Lovely. Another one too. Is that the one? Has it got a fish jumping out of a fishbowl?
Yes. It's one of those books that, every 3 or 4 years you just got to pull it back out and read it cover to cover, because it sits with you, and you forget some things as you move on and life takes over, but it's a really, really good read.
Yeah, lovely. So you talked a bit about your ritual of your mint tea in the morning, and we talked a bit about sort of routines. What do you do to make sure that you do keep things going on a regular basis, that you sustain what you've decided you're going to do?
I am not afraid to change it up. Like, I will say that. And it sounds like weird when you think about rituals and routines because you want it to be regular, but I have a little adult ADD. I'm not ashamed to say that. It's not diagnosed, but self-diagnosing myself. Can't sit still, can't do the same thing too long over and over, at least not in the same order. So I've forgiven myself a long time ago for the fact that somewhere between every 6 and maybe 12 weeks, depending on what it is, I need to change it up. Which is why I started adding the rooibos tea into the mix, right? I was like, okay, I need a new flavor in the morning. Like, let's see. And I've been okay with just kind of rotating them too. Sometimes I'll add almond milk, sometimes I won't. Like, it's just, sometimes it's the little thing to the routine. And for me is I push past that resistance point, because I think everyone, when you're creating your own ritual and routine, whatever works for you, like I have a power up and routine in the morning, and I have a power down routine at night, which involves me getting in bed and rubbing my feet on the floor, kind of connecting to earth and I have all these little weird things that I do before I get in the bed. But then I'm okay with the fact that once I hit that resistance, which is about 2 to 3 weeks into me doing something consistent, I'm trying to talk myself out of doing it or to change it. Well, I know that that's my resistance point. It's just something that I've learned about me and paying attention to, like, all right, Naketa, you're resisting continuing this just because you're trying to talk yourself out of it, period, even though it could actually be working for me. So once I get past that 2 or 3 week period and just do it for at least another 10 days, if then I still feel like I'm not getting energy from this, or it's not calming me, whatever the routine was supposed to do to calm me down or to pick me up, then I will change it and I'll alter it with something as small as, what I was joking with the tea. All right, I don't really add honey or sugar or anything to my tea, unless I'm sick. So I typically would just add a little almond milk. Sometimes it's cinnamon and nutmeg. Sometimes it's just a little change to that one task or behavior. For people who have routines, like what do people do? They leave their sneakers by their bed so that when they get up in the morning, they'll put them on and they'll go for a run or they'll go exercise, right?
Yeah.
Well, after you've done that, and then you feel like you're hitting a resistance point where you're getting out of bed, but you're not putting on your sneakers. You're actually waddling around the house for a little bit for 20 minutes, trying to talk yourself into putting on your sneakers. Like once you know what I mean? Like once you realize that you're hitting this point, work yourself through it for a couple of more days, 3 to 5 days, just to kind of see, is this resistance or is it because it's actually not working for me anywhere? Because from the spirit of neuroplasticity, your brain is wired to be connected to habits and it protects you from change, but the change might be necessary for you to go to the next level. So it's just kind of being mindful of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I do that all the time. Start routines, have sort of various things that I do on a daily basis and then change them, as you say. I think that's a great bit of advice to push through and just see whether that's, as you say, the resistance or whether you do need to change. So thank you for that. That was good. So
you're welcome.
What about those days where things don't go right, where you have a bad day and it's all gone horribly wrong? How do you deal with those?
Oh, yeah. Those days you just can't control the fires. I mean, we have them more often than we would like to, right? So one of the things that I do after I've just dealt with the fact, okay, A went wrong, B went sideways, and C should have never even come up, right? After you kind of dealt with whatever it was. I forgive myself, Joe. Like I forgive myself for the humanity that might have allowed me to be angrier than I wanted to, earlier in the day, especially if it's family related stuff. The people closest to you kind of catch your wrath, in a way that clients and, corporate partners and strategic partners will never see that, or hopefully never see that. So I forgive myself for it first. I see who do I need to apologize to correct the behavior, if it in fact is dealing with some kind of miscommunication, lack of communication, or over communication of my emotions, because they didn't necessarily ask for that. My daughter might have said, "Mom, I need you to pick something up from the store." And I was like, "I'm not picking up anything from the store," like just being, well, she didn't ask for that. And it wasn't necessarily necessary. So I may have to apologize for the over communication of it. So I kind of take a mental note of where do I need to correct it for the next time, which might start with an apology. I know my family told me forever, like, you don't know how to apologize. Like you just, like your apologies are not genuine, because I would apologize by saying like, "I'm sorry if you feel that way." Right? Like,
yes.
like I would do those kind of very recordable, I call them recordable apologies. Like you're being recorded, so you're trying to cover yourself in case someone says, "Oh, well, you actually did take the blame for that. Like you agreed that you were guilty." I'm like, "No, actually I didn't. I said I was sorry if you felt that way." Like I was kind of always talking like that. So I'm working exactly. So I'm working really hard at not talking to people that I love and that I trust with my life as if I'm being recorded, for everything. Yeah. So I do take kind of an account for that in the evening when that day didn't go right. Because typically if something didn't go right in business, my family might catch it, like they might catch a little bit of the attitude, or I'm not as loving when I chop up the chicken. I'm leaving big chunks in there that I know that normally I shred the chicken. And this time I'm like, "No, I don't care. You eat it. Like I'm just not putting as much love in my food or something." So I do take note of that. And if I need to, I will brain dump it. Like I'll dump it on a piece of paper. Like, this is what happened. This is how you can correct it. Like if it's a lot of stuff in my head, I do get it out of my head so that I can make room for my peace, which is really important, for me to sleep, because I love my sleep. So for me to sleep and not have all that stuff ruminating in my dreams and me working while I'm trying to sleep in my head and all that, I have to dump it out. So that's honestly how I deal with it.
Yeah. Great, thank you. So what about a day when you end the day knowing you've had the chance to live more? And I mean by that, the time to do the stuff that you want to do, not the stuff that you feel you have to do or you should do. What's that day look like for you? Like
when I've actually done what I want?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's my fun day. So that day, if I'm home, like if I'm, in my home, that day definitely involves lovemaking, because I'm a big advocate for that. So I just have to make sure my husband is in agreement and it's consensual, because after 40, he was like, "I don't know what happened to you, but it's ridiculous. Your libido is like through the roof." I'm like, "Yeah, it sure is. But it makes my day happy." So as long as it's consensual, I make sure that that's on the list. obviously my personal routines of, being connected to nature, if that's a nice walk into the city, which is about 35-40 minutes of a walk, each direction, things like that. Obviously working with at least a few clients and having them have some powerful shift in their mindset is phenomenal. Like, I get such a high from being able to help someone invest in themselves and, really pour in. And, if they've broken free from something, it's like the best oxytocin high in the world. So that's really honestly a perfect day before my grandbaby. Now that I have a grandbaby, spending time with her, because it is very different than when it was just my kids, because you were 24-hour paranoid that you were not screwing up your own children. Well, now I have this beautiful grandbaby that I can just love on and pray that my son and his girlfriend don't screw her up. Like, I can just pray for them, and they don't live with me. So that's extra awesome. And I just get to spend hours with her, making her laugh and enjoying her curiosity and, kind of where she is. That makes a beautiful day if I've done everything I wanted, because I've mattered to someone who doesn't even know how important she is in the world yet. And it's very similar to how I am with the women that I work with. They don't even they might have had successful careers and, the white picket fence, the house, the bank account and all of that, but they still don't know how important they are in the world yet. And that's part of my role on this earth, is to help them see their value and their desirability and their worth. So from the smallest, 4-month-old moment with my baby girl, well, she's not my girl, but I call her my baby girl.
Yeah.
Up to the 60-year-old young lady that I have the opportunity to pour into. That's a perfect day.
Lovely. Thank you. I don't think I've ever had a perfect day described in quite that way, particularly, I guess, given you're a relationship management institute person. The beginning of that had to be in there, but lovely. And as you say, the concept of babies not understanding anything about really themselves at that time is really insightful about the way, I guess, they behave and absorb what we're giving them, but not understanding anything at the moment, or we think they don't. They probably understand a lot more than we think.
So true.
Lovely. So it's been brilliant interviewing you, Naketa. I really have enjoyed it, and some great insight and some great analogies, as we said, around household things, which I won't forget. But tell people how they can find out more about you and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Joe. I'm so honored by this time with you. So I really appreciate you on so many levels. And I can't wait to have you on the Balance Boldly podcast as well, which we're already set up for. I know, I'm so excited. I can't wait. So the best way for anyone who wants to go a little further with just kind of learning who I am and what I do is go to our website at ThigPro.com. ThigPro.com. If you have a direct question for me, just because you are part of Joe Dodd's audience, email me directly at asknaketa@thigpro.com. And you can find me on most social media platforms, IG, Twitter, Facebook, at Balance Boldly, which is the name of the podcast. So I'm at Balance Boldly on everything, with the exception of LinkedIn. I'm under my full, government name, Naketa Thigpen. But I would say that's where to go, is just kind of get to know us, listen to the podcast, make sure that you email Jo and tell her that you love this episode, so she'll be extra excited to come to Balance Boldly for Ambitious Women, because we can't wait to have her there, and we'll move and we'll flow from there.
Lovely. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Naketa.
Thank you, Jo. Have an amazing day.
All this information is available in the show notes on the website. If you use the link powertolivemore.com/ in this case 69, then you'll be able to get to those show notes. And I remembered that I think I started a couple of weeks ago saying that I was going to share tools with you during this section of the podcast that I share on my weekly newsletter. And I'm not sure I did it last week, so I may have completely forgotten. So I will do that now. So I've been talking in my newsletter about the fact that I've been away camping in my caravan for the last couple of weeks, and the tool that I recommended is a mobile device, because the trip away has reminded me yet again of how powerful a smartphone can be when you need to get stuff done on the go. In fact, on my to-do list, I use tags that allow me to filter my tasks to show just those that I can complete on my iPhone, amongst other tags. And that way, when I'm out and about, I don't get distracted with those things that I can only do on my laptop or at my desk. So right this minute, it's into the evening. I've only got battery power left on my laptop because I'm in a field in the middle of nowhere with only solar power. And so I'm literally focusing on the tasks that I have on my to-do list that I can only do on my laptop, because I know I've got probably an hour and a half before I lose the battery. And then once that's out of the way, I can then go on and do some other stuff, or perhaps just stop working, which would be the sensible plan. So yeah, I use tags in my to-do list that say iPhone, offline and online, so that when I'm out and about, I can just go straight to those things and do those things whilst I'm, I don't know, on the train going into London or sat waiting for a meeting or whatever. And then the other tasks I'll get to when I'm, in a different environment with more technology at my disposal. So I am a bit spoilt at the moment because I've got an iPad Pro that's got a really big screen, which lets me get stuff done really as an alternative to the laptop. So I've honed my tagging system to enable me to distinguish between my phone, my iPad and the laptop. And that's really working well for me. And it is a reminder that being flexible when you create systems is key. So dogmatically sticking to the way you've always done something isn't the most productive way to work. So I didn't used to have an iPad tag in my to-do list, but now I do, because obviously that's another alternative that will help me to get stuff done, in the right way at the right time and all that sort of thing. So hopefully you've found that useful. If you haven't already downloaded my report, which is about the best 5 productivity apps for your mobile devices, then if you go to my website engagementandwellbeing.com, under the downloads section, you should be able to get access to that. So to remind you, the show notes for this week's show are at powertolivemore.com/69, and we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.